Hello everyone, I recently came across this article from 2020 which was titled "Germany ranked as one of the worst countries in the world for making friends." Now, after reading the article, this seemed a little bit misleading, but nevertheless it got me to thinking about my own experience of integrating into German society and sort of making friends, and I wanted to share that with you today. In this video I will touch on why friendship matters, the importance of language and shared experience, where to meet people, are the Germans cold, and group dynamics. And stick around till the end where I will share some of my key takeaways and things that worked for me. So in order to make friends, we first have to meet people. So obviously, this doesn't necessarily mean that it will lead to a friendship, but it is a necessary first step. I would say sort of friendship is quite a personal thing. It's quite a sort of subjective feeling that you have about someone, and everyone's definition is probably going to be a little bit different. For me, a friend is somebody that I feel very comfortable around, somebody where I can be myself and I don't have to play a role or sort of put up a front. I can just be me, and that's okay. I think it's very important to have maybe individual friends where you can meet and have a kind of deep conversation, but it is just as important to also have a group of friends and you do things together with them as well, because I think the group dynamic is really very different to an individual one-on-one conversation. And in the group, it helps you to bring other sides of yourself out, other sort of personality traits. We are social animals and we all need to feel like we are part of a group. So why is friendship important? Why does friendship matter? Well, loneliness is on the rise, especially in the US and the UK, and specifically among men. So if you're a man, listen up. This is really very important. So around 50% of people surveyed in the US said that they feel lonely, and 60% said that they do not have a best friend. And there is now a growing body of research which shows that loneliness is extremely detrimental to physical and mental health. It's even worse than smoking and can also actually lead to an earlier mortality. So quite literally, our friends can help us to live a much healthier and longer life. So for those of you that have followed me for a while, you will know that I was pretty lonely when I first moved to Germany. I would say for the first 2 years, I didn't really have anyone that I would have called a friend. I was meeting people individually, but it just never really developed into what I would call a friendship. And if I'm totally honest, this was kind of self-inflicted. I was trying very hard to integrate, to learn the language, and it's just very difficult to have a proper sort of deep relationship without being able to speak the language. And this leads me on to my first point, which is, you have to learn German. And those surveyed in this article basically said that it was very difficult for them to make friends without speaking German. And you might think this is obvious, and I do think it's pretty universal, unless you're living somewhere where maybe English is the default language, like, I don't know, Berlin or Amsterdam or Bali or something like that. But otherwise, you really do need to learn the language of the country that you're living in. Making friends in Germany is not easy, it is difficult. Most of the people surveyed in this study said that the majority of their friends group was not German, which for me is not really surprising. It is actually the same for me. And it sort of comes down to, I think, shared experience, which is a key part of friendship. Obviously, you automatically have this shared experience with other foreigners, that you are both living in Germany, in a foreign country, and you can immediately bond over sharing these experiences. You feel heard, you feel listened to, and you just feel like this person understands you better than somebody who is a native who's been living there all their life. On the flip side, it could also work with a German who's lived in your country or who's also lived abroad. Then you also have this sort of shared common experience which can further help to develop the friendship. Now, I live in Frankfurt am Main, which is Germany's most diverse city. And to be honest, Germans are often in the minority. If you go to any sort of social gathering or event, then usually it's at least 50-50, or often there are less Germans there than people from other countries. There's people from all over the place here. And I think in this respect, it's a little easier to integrate and to make friends in this environment than if you're maybe living somewhere like in East Germany or in Bayern, in Bavaria, where there are less foreigners. You really have more pressure to get very good at German. But not just that, you have to also learn really the cultural habits and the social cues the sort of humor and all that kind of stuff to really fully integrate and make friends with the locals. So I think it really is very important where you live, and your language level really does have a big impact on the quality of your friendships. Sticking on the theme of meeting people, where to meet people is obviously also very subjective. It depends on who you are. If you are single, if you're in a relationship, if you're married, if you have kids, this will all really, depend on where you go to meet people. In my experience, this is just my experience. This is all experiential, by the way, but I find it much easier to meet people and sort of get into a conversation when there is alcohol in the mix. People are just a little more open, they're more friendly. And you might say this is really not a great way to start a relationship. Of course, everything in moderation. But if you're in a foreign country, you don't know anyone, you have no friends, no contacts, you have to start somewhere. And I do think this is a good place to start. And this is really what worked for me. If you are somebody that does not really like going out to bars or wine stands, or you just don't drink at all, then I would suggest joining a club or society. The benefit of this is that there's quite sort of already a structure there. You already have a common topic or theme where you can assume that the other people will also be interested in this theme, whether it's cooking, whether it's knitting, whether it's a language course or a sports club. You already have this topic there, which is then the focus. And it takes the focus off you yourself and having to try and make yourself look interesting. There are also various apps out there sort of geared at meeting people, making friends, or meeting your neighbors. I have to say I haven't tried any of these, but I do know that some people have success with that. So maybe that's something that you can try. I just wanted to throw it out there. It is quite popular these days. So, are the Germans cold? This is a topic that really often comes up, often is repeated. It was also repeated in this article that the Germans are rather cold and distant and sort of closed off. And a lot of them have a very old, sort of long-lasting friends groups. They're friends with people they went to school with. And it's obviously extremely difficult to get in, to integrate into a group like that, because you just don't really have the history or the culture. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I think there is some truth to it, but I always have to think about this experience that I had when I was in Vienna. And I know Vienna is not Germany, but I do think it's relevant to this story. So I was in Vienna for my Einarbeitung. I was there for training for a new job that I had, and I was taken out on 2 separate occasions by 2 different managers. And I kind of asked the same questions, do you like it here? What are the people like? How is Vienna? All that kind of stuff. And the first manager, he was German. He was literally gushing about Vienna. He absolutely loved it. He said the people were so warm, so open, so friendly. It was so easy to meet people there. The second manager, she was from Vienna herself. She basically said the complete opposite, that the Austrians in general, it was very difficult to reach them emotionally. They were very cold and distant, and they already had their sort of closed friends groups, and it was really difficult to sort of integrate. It was almost impossible, she was saying. My takeaway from this is that we do need to take a little bit of responsibility ourselves, and it really is up to us to take the first step and to be proactive and just try. And I know it's not easy, it's very difficult. Like I said, the first 2 years I did not have any friends, and it is brutal. It's demotivating, but you just got to keep going. And basically the German manager who was gushing about Vienna was really quite extroverted. He was very charismatic. When he started talking, people just listened. But not only that, he was also very open and basically just laid himself out there for everyone to see. And I had the feeling that I knew him really very well just after, these few hours of conversation. On the contrary, the other manager, the manager from Vienna, was really very quiet, quite introverted. I had to listen extremely carefully to hear and understand what she was saying, and the conversation really remained very professional. So I had the feeling that I didn't really know her after this meeting. Another point that I really wanted to make is that I hear often when people come back from holiday, they are gushing about how open, how friendly, how amazing the people were in the country that they were in. And I actually had this myself when going back to the UK last week. I found myself having a lot of conversations with strangers, like on a daily basis, And it happened very naturally. It just sort of slipped and flowed into very natural conversations. There was nothing awkward about it at all. And I never had this when I was living there. I was more receptive to these kind of experiences, which generally you are not when you're living in your daily routine, you're going to work, you don't really have time, or you don't really stop to allow these kind of experiences to happen. Another point that I would like to mention is that, at least in my experience, could be wrong, but it seems that Germans do not have very large groups of friends. So again, when I was back in the UK, it's very normal on a Saturday night to see groups of 15 to 20 people out on a night out, all going out together. And of course, they might not be best friends, they might not have a deep, close relationship, but it's still, a group of friends that do things together. This doesn't seem to be so common in Germany. And this is actually something that I built up very quickly in China. And interestingly enough, I have, to a certain extent, built this up also here in Germany, but it just took me like 5 to 6 years to get to this point, whereas in China, it took me 3 months. There is, of course, a lot of luck involved. In China, I managed to meet someone right at the beginning who was a social butterfly, and he took me around and basically introduced me to a lot of people. And that way I integrated extremely quickly into an existing group. And, it can happen very quickly. You just have to meet the right people. But the only way you can do that is to go out, get out of your comfort zone, go out and meet new people. So if you are struggling with this, if you are finding the Germans cold, if you are finding them closed off, believe me, I understand, I get it, it's not easy. Please have courage, keep going, it will get better, and it is definitely very possible to make friends in Germany. It just takes a bit of time and you need a little bit of patience. My key takeaways for making friends in Germany and avoiding loneliness are, first of all, to learn the language. This is what I did. I took short-term pain for a long-term gain, and I do know people here in Frankfurt who've lived here for over 10 years who do not speak German, and it's tough. It's challenging, it's difficult. So, this really is something that you should focus on if you are struggling to make friends. The next point really is consistency. Like anything else, friendship is no different. You have to be consistent. So I would suggest going out to the same place consistently over an extended period of time to meet people. The third point is to join a club, society, group, whatever it is. This way it's in a very structured setting, and it's a little bit easier to take those first steps. If you are not somebody that likes to go out there and broadcast yourself to the world, I think this is really a great way to do it. It's just a little bit easier to make those first baby steps. What didn't work for me was meeting people at the gym. I'm somebody that likes to just put my music on and go hard. And I kind of find it annoying when people try to talk to me in the gym because it disturbs my flow. So that did not work for me. I know that a lot of people do make friends in the gym, and I can see how this could work because you have the shared common interest of working out and fitness. What didn't work for me also was making friends at work. This is maybe more specific to me because I was in a managerial role, and it was also highly discouraged by the management and the company to sort of be friends with your staff. But that's a very specific, it really depends on you and the work culture. I have found if you keep trying, if you keep going, then there are some great friendships to be had out there. So don't lose heart. I do hope this was of value to you. Thank you so much for watching. And I would really appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe if you want to. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.